Getting from zero to your first $100,000 can eat up a quarter of the journey, one quarter of the time, for one-tenth of the money. And I'm not telling you that to be discouraging. The math runs the exact opposite direction from how it feels. The slow part isn't the finish, it's the start. So if you've been grinding for years and the balance still crawls, you're not failing, you're not behind, you're normal. But here's what nobody tells you about the moment all of that changes. Let me set the table for you. Today we're walking through a real reason. Your first $100,000 is the hardest money you'll ever save. Not the motivational version, the math version. I'll show you why the early years feel like pushing a car uphill. I'll show you the exact crossover point where the work shifts. It shifts off your shoulders and onto your money. And what the jump from $100,000 to a million actually looks like on a timeline. It's shorter than the climb you already survived. By the end, you'll know exactly where you are on this road. Let's start with the part that makes people quit. You open an investment account. You start putting money in. 50 bucks, 100, 200 a paycheck, whatever you can manage. For the first couple of years, you check the balance, and it just sits there. It goes up because you put money in. That's it. There's no magic, no snowball, just you shoveling with nothing visible to show for it. And that's the trap, not a financial trap, a psychological one. Every story you've heard about investing is a story about compounding, about money making money while you sleep. So you go looking for that early and you don't find it yet. The growth isn't there yet and the balance barely moves. A lot of people decide the whole thing is a scam or that it just doesn't work for someone like them. Here's the truth. It works exactly the way it's supposed to. You're just standing in the slowest part of the road. Let me show you why, with real numbers. Picture a steady saver, $10,000 a year going into investments, and a long-run market return of around 7%. That's roughly what a broad U.S. stock market has averaged over decades. Not a guarantee, just a reasonable long-run average to model with. Getting to your first $100,000 takes somewhere around 8 years, and here's the part nobody tells you. Out of that 100 grand, roughly 80% is money you saved. Only about 20% came from growth. You did almost all of it by hand, with a shovel. Stay with me, because this is where it gets interesting. Now look at the second 100,000, the climb from $100,000 to $200,000. Same person, same 10,000 a year, same 7%. But this stretch doesn't take 8 years. It takes closer to 5. You didn't save more. You didn't earn a better return. You now have a bigger pile of money working alongside you. And the share flips, a much bigger chunk comes from growth. Your money started pulling its own weight. That's the crossover. That's the whole secret of this video. There's a point between $100,000 and maybe $200,000 or $300,000 where the market quietly starts doing more of the work than you do. Before that line, you are the engine driving everything forward. After that line, you've got a second engine running next to you. And it never gets tired, working for you day and night. Most people picture wealth building as a hill that gets steeper. More money, harder work. It feels that way because numbers get bigger, but the math says the opposite. The hill is steepest at the bottom. It flattens as you go, getting easier the higher you climb. Run that same steady saver all the way out to the very end. 10,000 a year, 7% year after year. It takes about 8 years to reach the first $100,000, but reaching a full million from a standing start takes around 30 years. The first tenth of the goal eats roughly a quarter of the time. The other 9/10 happen in the remaining 3/4, and it gets sharper near the top of the climb. The last $400,000 the climb from $600,000 to a million. It takes less time than your first $100,000 did, surprisingly. Less time for 4 times the money. That's the power of it. That's not opinion. That's the data speaking plainly. That's just what compounding does when you let it run long enough. So why does the start feel so brutal? 3 reasons, and they all stack on top of each other. The first reason, growth is invisible early on. A 7% return on $1,000 is 70 bucks. You won't feel 70 bucks in your account at all. A 7% return on 100,000 is $7,000. And that you'll feel same percentage, completely different experience. The percentage never changed, the pile did. The second reason is life itself getting in the way. The years saving your first $100,000 are when everything else costs the most. You might be paying down debt, covering rent that climbs every renewal, maybe raising kids, While the bills keep stacking up, the first $100,000 isn't hard because you're bad with money. It's hard because you build it during the most expensive stretch of life. I've been there. I was scraping together my first few $1,000s. At an age when the car kept breaking and the paycheck never stretched. The third reason is comparison, and this one's quieter, but it does real damage to how you see yourself. You hear the average American household has a net worth over $1 million. You look at your account, and you feel like you're losing a race. But that average is misleading and hides the real picture. The Federal Reserve's data shows the typical household sits near $193,000. The average gets pulled up by a small number of very wealthy households. So most people aren't measuring against the typical American. They're measuring against a number that billionaires bent upward. You're not behind. You're comparing your balance to a bent ruler. But here's what nobody tells you about all of this. Once you understand the slow part is the start, the whole game changes because you stop quitting during the only stretch that felt slow. Think about how most people actually fail at this. It's almost never a market crash. It's not one bad decision. They grind through years 3, 4, 5, the invisible growth years. They see almost nothing, decide it isn't working, and stop. They pull the money out and walk away from it. They quit 10 feet from where the road finally turns downhill. They did the hardest part, the shoveling, the heavy lifting. Then they walked away, right before the second engine switched on. The people who build real wealth in America mostly aren't smarter. They're not picking better investments than anyone else. They just didn't quit during the slow part. That's the edge. They treated the boring middle as the job, not a sign of failure. And there's a number that proves how rare it is to push through. The median retirement account balance for American workers across all ages. It sits somewhere around $35,000, according to recent industry data from large plan providers. So if you're at 50 or 80 or 100,000 and it still feels like you're behind, look at that number again. You're not behind. You're already ahead of the typical saver. The feeling and the facts just don't match at all. Nobody posts their boring, slow working account online. So what do you actually do with all this information? How do you survive the slow part instead of quitting in the middle? You change what you measure. This is the real shift. Most people in the early years measure their balance, and the balance barely moves, so they feel like they're losing. Stop measuring the balance. Measure the behavior instead. Measure whether the money actually went in this month. Did the transfer happen this month, yes or no? That's the only scoreboard that matters in the first $100,000. In that stretch, your contributions are the engine, not the returns. The second move is to make the behavior impossible to skip. Don't rely on willpower to invest the leftover at month's end, because there's never any leftover. Automate it instead. A fixed amount leaving your account on payday before you see it. You're not trying to feel motivated every month for 8 years. Nobody can do that, and you don't have to. You're building one decision that runs on its own while you live. Here's the truth I want you to walk away with. Your first $100,000 isn't hard because you're doing it wrong. It's hard because you're doing the heavy, manual, unglamorous part, the part where you are the entire engine and growth is too small to see. That part was always going to feel slow no matter what. The market can't help you much yet at this stage. So the only thing that can break you is quitting before the crossover. And now you know the crossover is real and roughly where it is. So here's your one action for this week. Set up a single automatic transfer, one fixed dollar amount, on your payday straight into your investment account. Pick a number you can actually sustain, even a small one, and then don't touch the dial for 12 months. Not the amount, not the timing, nothing. Just let it run. Your job in the first $100,000 isn't to feel like you're winning. Your job is to keep the shovel moving until the second engine starts, and it will start. The math is right there waiting. If this hit home for you, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. I drop new videos breaking down American money 3 to 4 times a week. Thanks for watching. Take care of your money this week, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.